Welcome to the 2.1, 2.3 quiz interactive study guide. Make sure again you have out a sheet of paper while you're completing the study guide to help you get your 100% perfect score on your quiz. Numbers 1 and 2, right here it says multiply, and always write your answer in simplest form. You must always simplify. So step 1, we look to see if we can cross simplify. We cannot, so we multiply across, multiply across. Numerators, 3 times 1, 3. Denominator, 7 times 4, 28. 3 28ths, and we always double check to see if we can even shrink it down, simplify it any further. We cannot. Final answer. Here, we can cross simplify. They each have a common factor of 3. Divide by 3, divide by 3. And this diagonal, divide by 2, divide by 2, which leaves us with 3 times 1, 3, and 5 times 1, 5, 3/5. Number 3, now we have mixed numbers. Whenever we have a mixed number, the very first step is always change it to an improper fraction. So 1 times 6 is 6, plus the 1 up here as our numerator, 7. We change that into 7, 6. I'm just going to rewrite the problem. And I'm back to square one. Now I cross simplify if I can. Divide by 2, divide by 2. Multiply across, I get 7 over 15. Final answer, 7/15. Number 4, 3 1/2, that becomes 7 halves. And 5 and 7/10 becomes 57 over 10. See if you can cross simplify. Unfortunately here we cannot. So 57 times 7, 350 and 49 would be 399. And 2 times 10 is 20. And 399 divided by 20. I know 20 times 20 is 400, so I know it's going to be 19 20s, which is 380, which leaves me with 19 20ths left over. So 19 and 19 20ths. Number 5, now we're dividing. And as we learned in class, we are going to always keep, change, flip, multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to rewrite this problem as 1/9 times the reciprocal, which is 3 over 1. Now I'm back to a multiplication problem. I can cross simplify. At this point, that's a 1, that's a 3. Final answer becomes 1/3. Number 6, 7 wholes. I'm going to call it 7 over 1. I'm always still going to keep, change, flip. Never touch your dividend. You're only going to flip over the divisor. So 7 over 1 times the reciprocal of 5 over 8, which becomes 8/5. See if you can cross simplify, and then you multiply across. And multiply across. 56 over 5, which becomes 11 and 1/5 as a final answer. 7, even with mixed numbers, first step, change it to an improper fraction first. 4 times 8, 32, plus 7, 39/8. 32 and 7, 39/8. And then we're going to keep, change, flip, multiplied by the reciprocal 1/8, which is 8 over 1. Cross simplify if we can, and in this problem we end up with 39 over 1, which equals 39 wholes. Number 8, 7 2/3, that's 21 plus 2, 23/3. This one becomes 9 plus 1 is 10, 10 over 9. So 23/3 divided by 10/9, and at this point, keep, change, flip. 23/3 times 9/10. I can cross simplify. That's a 1, that becomes a 3. And I end up with 69 over 10, which becomes 6 and 9/10. Final answer. Order of operations. Evaluate the expression. We still have to use and follow the rules of the order of operations. I need to do my division first before I ever add. So 6 divided by 2/3. Keep, change, flip. 6 becomes 6 over 1 times the reciprocal, 3 over 2. Cross simplify if I can. And I end up with 9 over 1, which is 9 wholes. Plus 1/2, and 9 wholes plus a half is simply 9 and 1/2. Number 10, I have division and multiplication. Order of operations, I have to go from left to right, so I must do the division portion first. Keep, change, flip. 7/12 times the reciprocal, 4 over 1. That becomes 1, cross simplify, and a 3. I get 7/3. I'm going to leave it as an improper fraction for the time being, because I still have to now multiply by 9/14. 7/3 times 9/14. Cross simplify if possible. That's a 1, that becomes a 2. And I end up with 9/6, which becomes 1 3/6, also known as 1 1/2. So even with order of operations, you still have to follow the rules of the order of operations. Here are 2 more examples. Left to right, because it's multiplication and then division, so I got to go left to right. 3 1/3 times 3 3/4. First step, change them to improper fractions. That becomes 10/3. This one becomes 15/4. I'm multiplying, so I don't do anything with the reciprocal. I cross simplify, divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 3, divide by 3. And I end up with 25/2. And since I have another step, divide by 5/6, I'm going to leave it as an improper fraction. At this point, keep, change, flip. So now I have 25/2 multiplied by the reciprocal, which is 6/5. Cross simplify if you can. And that leaves me now with 15/1, which equals my grand total, my final answer, 15. Number 12. Parentheses come first. I must do the parentheses first. Order of operations. 4 times 1 1/6. That's 4/1 times 7/6. Cross simplify, divide by 2, divide by 2. And I end up with 14/3. Again, I'm going to leave it as an improper since I'm still working with it. At this point, I have 6 2/9 divided by 14/3. And 6 2/9 becomes 56/9. Keep, change, flip. Times 3/14. That becomes a 1. This becomes a 3. 14 goes into 56 4 times. So that becomes a 1. This becomes a 4. And now I end up with 4 times 1, 4. 3 times 1, 3. 4/3. 1 1/3. Final answer. Word problem. In a mall, 1/15 of the stores sell shoes. There are 180 stores in the mall. How many of the stores sell shoes? This is a what is of problem. I want to know what is 1/15 of the 180 stores. And as we talked about in class, the word of means multiplication. So the math problem is just what's 1/15 times 180. Put that over 1. I can cross simplify. They each go into 15 one time. 15 goes into that answer 13 times. 12 times. And now I multiply across. 1 times 12 is 12 over 1, which equals 12. So 12 stores in the mall sell shoes. Number 14, here's a concert. Here's the setup, the floor, and the stage. They tell you what the floor, the dimensions are. They want to know what the area is. Area, as you should know from 5th grade, is simply length times width. So 103/4 becomes 403/4 times the width, 75.5, becomes 151/2. And now I multiply, and I cannot cross simplify it at all, which is not fun for anyone. So at this point, I need to do 403 times 151, and I get a huge answer, 60,853/8. Not a fun answer. And in fact, you will not have anything crazy like this on the quiz. I feel like the book here messed up. So go ahead and just skip over this problem and don't worry about it. But the last one we can definitely do. You are cutting as many 32 1/4 inch sections as you can out of the board to make skateboards. How many skateboards can you make? Well, we have 129 inches of wood. Each skateboard requires 32 1/4 inches of wood. We want to know how many of these sections do we have. So that's a division problem. So we have 129, so we're starting with our dividend, divided by 32 1/4. And we'll solve this with 129/1. And 32 times 4 is going to be 128 plus 1 is 129/4. We're dividing, so we're going to keep, change, flip. So we end up with 129 over 1 times 4 over 129. Luckily, we can cross simplify this one. We end up with 4 over 1, which equals 4. We can make 4 skateboards. That's our final answer. And that's it for the study guide. Make sure you go back and review once again. Don't worry about number 14. You won't have anything that crazy on your quiz. It'll be straightforward. But do realize to solve this, all you would have to do is multiply length times width to find the area. And we can always multiply any mixed numbers. So do a good job, study, come in with any questions you might have. Get ready for a perfect score on your quiz.